right. Let's go to our Bibles to Genesis chapter 7.
I'm excited. That's going really fun.
Wow.
Genesis
That's a person impersonation right there.
All right. Let's go ahead and pray. Father, again, we are thankful for our Wednesday night, our time together. We're thankful for our Bibles. And Lord, pray, learn from them tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, I have two apologies for you. The first one is, I couldn't find a real-life picture of the Bible character Noah. I don't know if that surprises you at all. Nor his wife. I looked. Nor his daughter-in-law. Nor
Didn't have internet
Anne
connection.
on the bottom there. And then the bottom right, Tubal Cain. I had a hard time finding Tubal Cain. But I made this yesterday. I even matched the font. There's nowhere on the internet where it says we came from 8 people, just so you know. And so I made this. And I said, hey, Lisa, is there anything in this movie that would say I shouldn't use it as a... Because I've never seen the movie Noah. And she said, no, not that I know of.
Not that you know what.
And then I thought, I better watch it.
Not a very good movie.
It's all right. Well, the biggest thing for me was it kept me hanging on where are the other 2 women going to come from. And that question was answered in the last couple minutes, and it was kind of weird. It does not portray pre-flood Earth very accurately. Tubal Cain is on the ark the entire time. Don't think so. We know that Shem and Ham's wives do not come from Japheth's wife. Isla, what else do we know? Just a bunch of stuff. So I went ahead and used this graphic because I wanted to show Noah and his wife and his son and his daughter-in-law, Tubal Cain, just to say we came from 8 people. And shouldn't we be laughing at ourselves by now? And then the other apology I'm going to give you is this. Sunday morning, Harper. Sunday morning, I was not in very good form. Had I known that I was going to come up and start coughing, I would have went ahead and asked Matt. I didn't know until I'm 3 minutes in that coughing was going to be an issue. So my apologies for that. And then just the whole sermon was just downhill from there. I prepared to be short, but not that short. But then I started coughing and making stuff and putting things together. Did you watch it? It was painful, wasn't it?
Just the very, very beginning.
Yeah, sorry.
It was okay.
What happened on the very, very beginning?
That's when the coffee was the worst.
Oh, okay. I almost thought about just making it not available, but
Because it was on my AirPods, so
Oh.
it was like, that's probably the sort of talking about it.
so, yeah. But anyways, I don't come out of Sundays very often feeling like I laid an egg, but I certainly did there. But it's not my job to do anything except to give a message, so we did that. All right. So in the midst of making that graphic yesterday and asking Lisa, we decided to go ahead and watch Noah. And it's an interesting interpretation. I don't have any problem with Hollywood making a different, interpretation. However, when you say different interpretation, you can still say it's not accurate, which is okay. It's fine. There's interesting ideas, like Tubal Cain being on the ark. No, he wasn't, because the Bible says expressly that there's only 8. There was 8, so now you could say that if she had 1 daughter, then Tubal Cain could have been on there, but since she had 2, Tubal Cain can't because there's got to be 8 people. I mean, you just can't get around that. Giants were in the movie, but they came from angels. I get that. I believe that, but I don't believe that happened like that or looked like that. But whatever. There's other movies like that, that just take a different spin, like that movie Knowing, kind of freaky movie. And, Nicolas Cage, he's in every other movie besides, but they have the rolling things and, it's an interpretation of what other worlds might look like. how the Adam and Eve thing might, portray itself. However, again, wrong interpretation. Now, if we're going to be based on the Bible, but I'm fine with entertainment. That's all it was. Did you see what I used as why I'm talking about this? Did you see that? I used the movie poster. Yeah. The book is better than the movie. But again, biblically, it was at 16. Actually, no, it was at 15. April of 1990. I still would have been 15. Why? See, I don't know. Either I was saved at a young age at Trinity or Tri-City Baptist Church in Myrtle Creek, Oregon, or later on, either which way. I was only saved once, but it was while watching an Easter program that a lot of things dawned on me. Like, Jesus as a man on earth would actually be, discouraged about something, crying about something, and it was actually one of those types of things that actually kind of reached me a little bit. There's movies like Passion of the Christ, which is a Catholic movie, by the way, but it has some things in it, different interpretation. I've read about The Last Temptation of Christ. I have not watched it. From what I read, I'm not suggesting anybody watch it, even from what I read. But when I say I read the Wikipedia page, and having Jesus be a rebel and then a compatriot of Judas and trying to fight off the Romans or something, and it could be the Wikipedia page wrong. I don't even have a clue about that. But then gets crucified at the crucifixion, as there's a different temptation of what if life been different, and I think it's just an interesting. And then I hear about the Chosen being shown now, and a lot of clips I see there more towards Mormonism. But however, you see there, I decided to use the picture because I needed a graphic that was less about the ark and more about the people. So this whole stupid idea, can we really have came from 8 people 4,500 years ago? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. See, the Bible forces decisions upon us. It's not a neutral book. It can't be. We can just not be in it and say, I believe the Bible, and that's fine. But we think we have the world figured out because of science, and we put air quotes on that, but we don't disagree with science. No one does. 2 + 2 is always 4. Potential energy equals kinetic energy. We believe all that stuff. It's just that we might disagree on a conclusion that's given. But the flood poses a real problem for people. We tell people that it's okay not to believe in the flood, but just believe in Jesus. Believe in Jesus, but that flood, that whole creation, just, when it was, it's fine because Jesus is the only way to heaven, and that's what you need to remember. But the real problem comes when we tell people that we need to have them trust Jesus. You don't have to believe the flood. You don't have to believe our stuff. The problem is, you start reading what Jesus said. Jesus believed the flood. So do we believe that Jesus was the Son of God, is the Son of God? Or do we think that he was just wrong? Matthew chapter 24, verses 36 through 39, Jesus said this, but of the day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. Which, by the way, I think that is an omniscience issue on earth. Jesus knows now, after the ascension, but he didn't know at the time. But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days that were before the flood, see there, the days before the flood, he talks about Noah, he talks about the flood. They were eating and drinking, marrying and giving marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So Jesus was under the impression that the flood was an actual event. So the question becomes, what are we going to do with that? At some point, we either believe the flood or we have to throw Christianity away, and some are actually doing that. But 2 Thessalonians 2:3 says, let no man deceive you by any means, that for that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. And so that talking about that falling away. It's talking about apostasy. And if the church isn't in a period of apostasy right now, I'm not sure what we do call it. But we do some things as Bible believers to shoot ourselves in the foot. And here, you've seen all these before. First, here's what we show our kids, right? And, this is what the ark looked. This is what we put it on their wall. And then wonder why they grow up and just don't believe the story. Of course, I found this one humorous. It's hard to see. It's a woodpecker on the side. Noah's trying to swat the woodpecker from the side of the boat. It's humorous, you see? Okay, fine. Don't laugh. Thank you. I didn't even bring my one with the two unicorns. Come to find out they're talking to each other and they're both guys. It is.
Yeah, that's weird.
It is. What?
That's weird.
But you've never seen it?
2 unicorns that are both guys
Yeah.
talking to each other
On the ark, So like, hey, it's up to us to repopulate the planet. What's your name? Carl. What's yours? Gary. By the way, there were unicorns on the ark. It's just that we don't call them that anymore. The Bible mentions unicorns and people picture the mythical creature, and that's not what the Bible's talking about. All right, I forget what so then here, see those cars and everything there? That is a depiction of the real size of the ark. I was thinking it was like 500,000 cubic feet. Enough to fit 7 of every clean kind of animal. Not 2 by 2. Well, they went 2 by 2, but there wasn't just 2, there were 7. And by the way, they didn't bring in a full-grown elephant. They probably didn't bring in a full-grown giraffe. They may have been adolescents because they had to start reproducing pretty soon. But there you go. You can fly to Kentucky, check it out, go there and see the actual size of the ark. So, I think the truth is we haven't been effective in teaching the flood story. And when we have been, people haven't been listening. But occasionally something comes up that makes me laugh, and I think it will probably make you laugh too. How is it possible that we all came from 8 people 4,500 years ago? Isn't the idea of that completely asinine? How can a Christian ever believe, you read Genesis chapter 7, the flood story, 8 people go on that ark. And now we have 7 billion people on the planet, 4,500 years later? Stupid. So, just so you know, how do we come up with Bible dates? And it's easy. You go to Genesis, you go forward, you take the names of the different people. It gives the dates, the first one was born, when their firstborn was born, and then how much longer they lived. And you can do that, so you go to the genealogies, you find the ages, and then you find 2 Moses, because you can find the math to there. And then you do to Abraham, and then you do the time to Moses, and then you can just go forward from there. The judges, the kings, it's all pretty straightforward. All of it's in the Bible. So also another way you can define generations and do math. You turn to Matthew chapter 1 and figure that out. You can go to Daniel's 70th week, 70 weeks, and figure out the intertestamental period. You can go to Usher's what's the second word? Complete and unabridged history of the world. I forget the full name of it. I just gave you an unabridged guess. I'm not sure. But up here, I have a wall chart. And you can go ahead and take this down. I have it in my house. You can take it and you can study it. And this is pretty much an accurate depiction of where people were and how everything is working all throughout human history. So, and then here we have it zoomed on the flood. Shem. One thing that the Noah movie had accurate is it had Methuselah dying actually in the flood or right before it. If you do the math, that's one thing to figure out. He had to die within a month of it, come to find out. So, we have a couple problems. The age, or the calculations that we go backwards in the Bible, they're straightforward, they're accurate. The timing of the flood is straightforward. And everything fits together up here, but there's still some problems. How do we get from 8 people to 7 billion in 4,500 years? Now, I want to transition to something else. It is related. But have you ever thought of how many great-great-great-great-grandparents you have? I have a chart here. And I'm going to have to turn around and read this one because I can't read that one. So your great-grandparents, you have 8 of them. Your second great-grandparents, you have 16, 32, 64. You see, by the time you get to your 8th great-grandparents, it's 1,024 people. Now, I'm not saying, so for me, in other words, go backwards, 8 generations, 9 generations. There's 1,024 people in that. That's how many people it took to get to me. And you as well, by the way. Now, by the way, this has nothing to do with the numbers. I'm just trying to explain something to you right now. And so then you get down to, you don't have to turn around because I didn't bring your glasses in, 38 generations. You see that? That is, it's a lot of people.
1 trillion.
Billion?
Trillion.
Yeah. So 1 trillion people. Now that year over there is 750. So now, again, what I'm showing you here is so you picture a V coming down to me, and then so all of ours overlap. So it turns out that we're all going to be interrelated, probably just within 3 or 4 generations back. You know, we can't get with our cousins, but other than that, it's kind of, so my great-great-great-grandma also might be my great-great-aunt. And so it all fits, it all interweaves. So we're all interrelated quite a bit more than probably we think we are. So it's a lot of people. It's shared. So we all have then common ancestors. The question is just how far back I have to go in order to find a common relative with anybody else. And the answer is I really don't have to go back very far. Here you're going back to 750, and you're talking about 1 trillion people. There hasn't even been 7 billion people on the planet. So we're not talking about the same people. We're talking about the relationships, and all these things overtwine each other. So, we're all could be probably within, 8 generations related somewhere. So, then I also brought this for you. This has nothing to do with the Bible study, but I want you to see it because this question comes up all the time with people of how second removed and all that happens. Again, I got to turn around. So your brothers and sisters, first cousins, you see that going across. Nope. That.
Nice.
Thank you. So you see when you're talking about first cousins, second cousins, when you're talking about once removed, you're talking about one step down or one step up. It's the step up or step down that makes the removed. Once removed, twice removed, thrice removed. And Lisa, you and I talked about this. So grandnephews and nieces would be your grandchildren's cousins. So your brothers and sisters have kids. They have kids. So they're your grandnephews and nieces. So you have a grandniece.
Okay, yeah.
And if it was somebody else's, but it's on the same line, nothing removed. And so that's what removed is talking about. All right. Let's go back to Genesis chapter 7 and read something here. So what I'm trying to point out here is how closely we all are related. We share common ancestors, and it doesn't have to go back very far in order to find out who that person is. Genesis chapter 7, let's look here at verse 1. And the Lord said to Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteous before me in this generation. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens. So remember, the clean animals by sevens. There's 7 of them. The male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2. The male and his female. The fowls also of the air by sevens, and the male and the female, to keep seed alive upon the face of all the earth. For yet 7 days I will cause it to rain upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights, and every living substance that I have made will I destroy from off the face of the earth. And Noah did according to all that the Lord commanded. And Noah was 600 years old when the flood of waters was upon the earth. Noah went in, and his sons, and his wife, and his sons' wives with him. So Noah went in with his 3 sons, 3 wives. Not his 3 wives. His wife, 3 sons and their wives. So that part of the movie is obviously not accurate there. Into the ark because of the waters of the flood. So it doesn't allow, this narrative does not allow for Shem, Ham, and Japheth to have kids yet. 8 people went on, and we start trying to add things on. Just no reason to do that. Matter of fact, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 18. No reason to turn there. I'll read it to you. For Christ also has suffered for our sins, the just for the unjust, that he might bring us to God, being put to death in the flesh, but quickened by the Spirit, by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison. I believe on there probably something different than you do. Old Testament people were not in heaven. They were, as we've taught before, they were in Abraham's bosom, but they didn't know about the resurrection of Christ, so Jesus had to go and explain a little bit further. If you're a spirit in prison, man, you're listening to that and you're accepting whatever he has, I believe. Verse 20. Which sometime were disobedient, when once the long-suffering God waited in the days of Noah while the ark were preparing, wherein few, that is, 8 souls, were saved by water. Now, does it say saved in the water? No, saved by water. They're saved from it. In other words, the ark, they were not in the water. Because you read further, it makes it sound like baptism saves, and it absolutely does not. So neither one of these allows space for Shem, Ham, and Japheth to have kids brought into the ark. So only 8 people went on, and they had not a lot to do for an entire year on this boat. So we have this bottleneck, 45 some odd 100 years ago, that is the flood. At first there was creation, expansion. I saw some models that had up to 9 million people that would have been alive at the time of the flood. The gene pool was corrupted, man was corrupted, and so God sent a flood. Now remember, we talked about those giants are part of the reason that God sent a flood. That's a discussion for another time. But one good aspect of people not thinking about the flood is they occasionally publish things that prove the flood. You ready for this? This is going to be fun. This is Scientific American. It's in no way conservative. You can go ahead and read it sometime. They're talking about air conditioning the rivers so the fish live longer. They're just in panic mode about just about everything that's going on. And so here's the title that I want to show you here. Humans are more closely related than we commonly think. Now, this is related somewhat to the stats I was showing you earlier, but we're going to expand on it. Humanity's most recent common ancestor and so-called genetic isopoint illustrate the surprising connections among our family trees. So this article talks about how actor Christopher Lee, who would be Count Dooku in Star Wars, just in case you're wondering, how he traced his ancestry back to Charlemagne. The article points out, and I can send you, anybody, the link to this. The article sends out that geneticist Adam Rutherford said literally everyone with European ancestry is directly related to Charlemagne in some way. We can go ahead and trace it back. We're all going to be connected. Going back that far, we're all going to be connected somehow. So, let's read a couple parts of this and have some fun with it, shall we? The family tree of humanity is much more interconnected than we tend to think. We're culturally bound and psychologically conditioned to not think about ancestry in very broad terms, Rutherford says. Genealogists can only focus on one branch of a family tree at a time, making it easy to forget how many forebears each of us has. And that's kind of what we talked about. They overlap, because you're going back to 1 trillion people, and we haven't even been close to 1 trillion people on the planet alive dead. We're, maybe 7 billion, 8 billion people alive. And it used to be that there have been more people alive now than there were that have ever died, and I'm not sure if that's the case. That put us roughly at 16 billion people that have ever lived and died on the planet. And again, I don't know if that's where we stand on that. So they obviously overlap. Next. The consequence of humanity being incredibly inbred is that we are all related much more closely than our intuition suggests, Rutherford says. Take, for instance, the last person from whom everyone on the planet today is descended. And that's finding the most common multiple. The first person that we go back to that everybody's related to. This is not, again, this has nothing to do with the flood yet. Where are we at? In 2004, mathematical modeling and computer simulations by a group of statisticians led by Douglas Rohde, then at MIT, I'll go ahead and shorten some stuff there, indicated that our most recent common ancestor probably lived no earlier than 1400 BC. Now that common ancestor, we're not saying that everybody came from that common ancestor. We're just saying the person that we all have a relation to. You know, this might be a cousin, this might be whatever, our lines go back and they can all be not traced, but this guy's interwoven into it somehow in 1400 BC. And possibly as recent as AD 55. In the time of Egypt's Queen Nefertiti, someone from whom we are all descended was likely alive somewhere in the world. Again, this has little to do with the flood yet. Just proving about how we are all interrelated. But, you ready for this? Just continuing with the article. Go back a bit further, and you reach a date when our family trees share not just one ancestor in common. You understand that one ancestor in common, we're not talking about everybody comes from that person. It's just all the things converge, and that person's in commonality with everybody. Okay? At this date called, I'm sorry, I need to start over. Go back at, not completely over, don't get panicked. Go back a bit further and you reach a date when our family trees share not just one ancestor in common, but every ancestor in common. At this date, called the genetic isopoint, the family trees of any two people on Earth now, no matter how distantly related they seem, track back to the same set of individuals. If you are alive at the genetic isopoint, then you are the ancestor of either everyone alive today or no one alive today, Rutherford says. Humans left Africa, and so this sentence is going to be the one we disagree with. Humans left Africa and began dispersing throughout the world at least 120,000 years ago. But the genetic isopoint occurred much more recently, somewhere between 5300 and 2200 BC, according to Rhodes' calculations. So according to them, according to science, we all go back to two common people about 5,300 years ago. Everyone else has died off. Everything goes back to that point. Seems like a bottleneck, doesn't it? If only we had some sort of event that happened somewhere between 5,300 and 2,200 BC that would be a genetic bottleneck. What could that possibly be? Could it possibly come from the 8 people on the flood? So what they're saying here is these same 2 people that everybody comes from, that happened back there, the isopoint, is where everybody comes from. We're saying that everybody at that point came from 8. Actually came from 6, if we want to be more technical. I don't think Moses, I don't think Noah and his wife had any more kids. Not listed in the genealogies. It seems that everybody came from Shem, Ham, and Japheth. I've tried to study that out to see if it's the case. It could be, I'm not sure. So, if you put a study on it and you can link other people, all of a sudden you can say that the isopoint is between 5,300 and 2,200 BC. But if I say that the isopoint is at 4,500 BC, I'm a problem. How could we possibly come from 8 people on the flood? Well, we came from 2 people, 5,300 BC. Now, they're not claiming that everybody else is dead. They're just saying the 2 common people. The math leads us back to 2 people that we all came from. Everyone else died off somehow, didn't reproduce. Their genetics didn't make it down to us. So science says we came from 2 people less than 8,000 years ago, but Christians are idiots. Do we keep going? I think the answer is yes. At first glance, these dates may seem much too recent to account for long isolated indigenous communities in South America and elsewhere. Because isn't that the first thing that you think of when people talk about, well, those people have been uncontacted for all these years? No, not true. But genetic information spreads rapidly through generational time. Rutherford explains. Beginning in 1492, you begin to see the European genes flowing in every direction until our estimates are that there are no people in South America today who don't have European ancestry. So when Scientific American says it, it's okay. When I, a Bible-believing Christian, say it, I'm unlearned and an idiot. Is it a surprise, though? How quickly can we come up with a new breed of dog? You know, I researched this a little bit. You know, you can come up with a new breed of dog, what?
It's just comical you researched
How long it takes to come up with a dog? The American Kennel Club says you can come up with a new breed of dog, fully defined and everything, and have acceptance within a couple decades. Yeah, and I still don't know how you do it. Because you have this one dog over here that has, can jump high, but he's stubborn. So we don't want that stubbornness. We're going to go breed him with, reproduce with this dog over here that's a little more, portly, whatever, can't jump. But you know what? He is eager to learn. And so somehow we breed those, but we only get what we want. And then I don't know how that whole thing happens. But you can come up with a new breed of dog and have it established in 2 decades. I've used this before. Gummy bear genetics. Now what you would say is, well, yeah, that's Japheth and his wife. And then they're having those kids there. Where does the green one come from? Okay, well, it's Shem and his wife's kid. Shem, Ham, and Japheth weren't very diverse in their genetics. But their 3 wives would be. So all of a sudden you insert the green one. Married off into an orange one. And then you have those 4 on the bottom. But while this is all going on, because of all the generational interbreeding that article talked about, all these genes are just getting thrown together to where we all have common ancestors. But then the question becomes that genetics has what's called washout, to where some things many years back are just your percentage of that being part of your gene pool goes down. But what if here you have the gummy bear on the bottom right marries somebody else that has that same common thing with the right ear on the top side, and all of a sudden that was called maybe a genetic anomaly and shows up after 4 generations? What are you going to do with that? What if it could happen? Because you do have some things that happen that are different with people. So with that, even science says, I was about to say 4,500 years ago, that 4,500 years ago, for a bottleneck of genetics is possible. So from there, we also want to look at migration. Now, here is where everybody flows from. Now, we all want to say that they came from Africa. And also notice on there on Africa, it says Adam and Eve. Even the scientific community, it's common people there. But now, it wasn't Adam and Eve. We're more concerned with, notice how everything goes up, even, except for those couple lines there, everything goes up, but everything really branches out from more of the south, the more Turkey. Oh wait, let's do this. That's not very small. But that's, in the middle of that would be where the ark would let down. And so then you see all those migration points. Even genetic history tells us that this is what happened. That everybody came from those areas. Of course, there had been an ice age, because after a flood like that, all of the, and one of the reasons people talk about, because I believe in the canopy theory. I've taught it before. I can teach it again if you like. And that there was a protective canopy over the earth. It being gone would be the reason that a rainbow wouldn't show up until afterwards, and why it all of a sudden would be a sign, and it wasn't before. But a whole bunch of, water came from the ground to water, a whole heap of evidence. But even here, you see the white line, but they talk about how in Ice Age, people who don't like the canopy theory, even among young Earth creationists, say that all that water coming down would hyper-freeze everything. And so then there would be glaciers and everything coming a lot south. And so those glaciers would cover areas like the Bering Sea, even maybe coming up into Australia or whatever the case is. But the sea level would be much lower because of these ice shelves. The earth is full of evidences of the flood, which I taught in my Genesis series, and if you want a link to those, they're still up. My Genesis series is still on YouTube. But then somebody says, hey, you're silly, right? Every civilization has a flood story. Well, wouldn't it be more likely to, because that got me when I was young. It's like, really? Turns out they do. But doesn't that make more likely that the flood happened and not that everybody's copying from Moses? Noah? Moses wrote it, so just give me a break when I say Moses, right? If all civilizations have a flood story, wouldn't that prove the point? Have you ever read the Epic of Gilgamesh? Have you? Matt, you've read the Epic of Gilgamesh, all right.
He's the third hobbit, right?
Yes, he goes to Middle Earth, and Middle Earth ends up getting flooded. Yeah.
Pretty good.
So that's an easy answer for humans. Super easy. Matter of fact, I'm going to get back to that in just a minute. Okay, I got a page to go in 4 minutes. So animals. How did kangaroos then get to Australia? You're an idiot. Well, while Moses, Noah and his wife, Shem, Ham, and Japheth and their kids were just all of a sudden reproducing, animals left. And they walked. They have to do that with evolution too. You realize that, right? And by the way, the Bible does say, and I know people aren't going to buy it, that the earth was divided on the days of Peleg, and I actually think that's what happened, but I'm not even going to go there because you lose almost everybody with that one. But they all walked. Ice age, low sea levels. But because I don't have a video of it and don't have a land bridge and can't provide it, does that mean it didn't happen? Because even the evolutionist still has the same problem. Of course, then we have these. Where did penguins come from? Scientists say it's not Antarctica. NPR. Really? Who was claiming they came from Antarctica? Nobody. But even as I said, evolutionists have the same problem. They just add millions of years to make every story plausible. Well, you had to do it in 4,500 years. Okay, well, so an extra million's going to help you out? One thing I want you to notice about the flood, the next time you read it in Genesis 6 and 7, is it talks about kinds. The ark did not have to be big enough to hold one of every species, just one of every kind. Canine is a kind. So there weren't chihuahuas, I was about to say penguins, chihuahuas, German shepherds, labs. There weren't all these different species of dog. There were a few canines. And that's it. And from those canines, within a couple generations, just went out over. I didn't even study this very far. But right here, Matt, can you tell me, I keep on pushing the wrong button here. That area here, you've been there, has some pretty aggressive animals, doesn't it? And those aggressive animals probably, something like a marsupial or kangaroo is probably going to run away from the animals that are on that continent, right? Yeah, so now you see why maybe, tigers wouldn't go down here, tigers wouldn't go out. They stick right where they are because they have nobody chasing them, right? But whatever.
But they do have the dingoes down.
They do have the dingoes. Tasmanian devils.
Yeah.
Did you know the Tasmanian devil is a marsupial? I did not know that. Well, actually.
I could have used a couple kangaroo fight videos in this presentation.
Presentation. Really? Presentation? So the math doesn't add up for evolution or millions of years anyways. I want to show you here this in a minute, and we'll just go ahead and end on these couple notes. We know from the Bible, however, that this is not the same article, this is from Answers in Genesis, that around 2500 BC, 4,500 years ago, the worldwide flood reduced the world population to 8 people. And that number 3 is oh, you don't even have it. Yes, you do. That number 3 is a link to a GIF of population growth that spread out. But if we assume that the population doubles every 150 years, we see again that starting with only Noah and his family in 2500 BC, 4,500 years is more than enough time for the present population to reach 6.5 billion. Because see there, it doubles every 150 years. Evolutionists are always telling us that humans have been around for hundreds of thousands of years. If we did assume that humans have been around for 50,000 years, and if they were to use the same calculations as above, 50,000 years and your population doubles every 150? Don't read that page because I didn't copy this one. If we were to use the calculations from that, there would have to be 332 doublings at the time of that writing 10 years ago. And the world's population would be a staggering figure. It'd be a 1 followed by 100 zeros. Made all those other numbers we read up there just look, a trillion is nothing compared to that. But if you double every 150 years. Here I have some population charts for you. Okay, thank you. I don't know why that took forever to show. What am I doing? Okay. So you're looking at that chart and you say, that looks very 90s and early 2000s Christian-y, doesn't it? You have a hard time finding this chart anymore, especially one that goes back to 0. There you see the exponential growth now. We look at that exponential growth and we think, there's no way. But if you go back to 0, 0 is the time of Christ, not the 0 time of creation. What's that number at the bottom? 0. Not a lot of people. See, 8 people can produce that, especially if they had a 2,000-year run at it. Here's another one. World population and growth rate. See, that only goes back to 1050. And you're at 250,000 people on the planet at 1050. See, we look around, we see New York, we see San Francisco, we see all that. There's no way that 8 people could produce all this. Well, they did. Then here's another one, and they want me to pay $15 to download this one. So I just got the smaller version and blew it up for you. But you see it. Which by interesting, it's exponential growth, but do you know the fertility rate? In other words, the number of kids per female is actually going down, and they're worried about that? Matt did. So, did we come from 8 people? Yep. Even the world numbers, science numbers, all the number computers. Doesn't take rocket surgery. Yes, we came from 8 people and it's not a big deal. All right, got a couple of announcements for you real quick. Of course, soul winning this Saturday and the 18th. Bring an umbrella this Saturday apparently. And the 16th, don't forget to change your clocks this Saturday. Or you're going to be here an hour late. You don't want to do that. Testimony service 2 weeks from tonight. Is that right? 2 weeks from 3 weeks? Okay. Well, yesterday. All right. Thanksgiving turkey giveaway. We talked about that briefly. We're working on the video for that tonight. And that you're probably going to see that in your Facebook because we're going to advertise it. And we could have a couple extra people here that Sunday. So be nice to somebody. And study Galatians starting December 8th. That's next Wednesday night.
Next Wednesday night? What'd you say?
I meant November 8th. I put December.
Oh.
What are you going to do? Let's go with this one instead. How about that? Next week.
I thought you were doing that one.
1 week.
Okay.
No, this Bible study was only about did we come from 8 people.
Oh, okay.
I already did Genesis.
I know.
Weren't you here for it?
Yes, I was.
That was painful. It was like 50 chapters. We didn't skip any of them. I mean, we spent a lot of time on chapters 1 through 5.
Okay, I'm clear now.
I'm not sure you are. The way your shirt matches the stuff, the chairs. And so, Lisa, if you look back, the way she's holding her shirt, it looks like it's just...
It's blending in.
Yeah. All right. And the reason we're doing Galatians, because it's pretty good. Matter of fact, I was reading this week and it talked about uncircumcision. The gospel is circumcision. All sorts of neat stuff. And, I've made fun of people doing studies on Galatians too many times. It's time for us to do it. And so there you go. All right. Anything else we need to talk about? We got a video to do tonight. We got choir stuff to practice. And so anyways, go ahead and pray so we can get all that done.
I have something for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think it's pertinent to the next conversation. I sent you the link Elon Musk, he's becoming our buddy. He says civilization, according to the invention of writing, is only 5,500 years old, which is really interesting. I sent you the link to it. It's on Rogan's podcast with him this week, but I caught it yesterday when he said it. So
Nice.
that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So
Yes. And it's kind of interesting because they talk about that, everything before that's prehistoric, right?
Yeah.
And we just didn't learn to write, whatever. Continue with your pig's tooth and trying to call it Nebraska man. Yeah, whatever. Okay, we'll go ahead and pray.